trying to manage your expectations, allowing yourself not to recognize that not everything's going to be perfect about the holidays. Look at your effort, not the outcome. We don't want to sacrifice the good at the altar of the perfect.
The holidays are upon us. It's hard to believe. A season for giving and enjoying time with family and friends, but it can also be a time of stress and even depression for many, especially for those who've lost a loved one who are facing a life-threatening condition. On today's episode of The Upbeat, Psychologist Dr. Gerry Florio joins us with some pointers for taking the stress out of the holidays and how to make the most of New Year's resolutions. Welcome, Gerry.
Thank you, Mark.
You were actually our first guest on our first episode of The Upbeat many months ago, so we're glad to have you join us again. And we should also point out that you were a founding board member of Kelly's Angels, the organization that puts this together, and you've been very helpful through the years. Last year, families around the world were apart because of the pandemic. There was a lot of loneliness and isolation. This year, we've made some progress, but there is still a ways to go. Despite the happiness associated with the holiday season, stress, anxiety, and depression can often make cameo or unwanted appearances. What sort of advice can you offer for those who are feeling the stress of the holidays?
Well, the holidays are a great time of year, and they can be a very happy time of year, but they can also bring with it a lot of stress. The first thing I would say to people is that if you are feeling stressed, know that that's a very common reaction. It's not, you're not doing it wrong or not,
it's not just you.
It is not just you. The holidays are very stressful. There's multiple demands. There's plenty of things to do, decorations to be put out, baking, cooking, shopping, entertaining, visiting, just multiple demands. And that we're already busy to begin with. This year there's a lot of added stress in terms of finances and the ability to get things. Another stressful thing about the holidays is just unrealistic expectations. We can put a lot of pressure on ourselves to have the perfect holidays every year, and everything has to be perfect. There's a lot of socialization, which can be fun, but also be demanding. And then there is just when things are going well, the holidays can add to that. But when life, is hard, when life is challenging, difficult, the holidays can be a tough time, and people can struggle with loneliness. People can struggle with depression. They can look back on a year, and if it's been difficult, it is. Those things are kind of on our minds and highlighted. So there's plenty of reasons to be stressed. So. Don't be hard on yourself.
How do we make sure, though? Are there simple things we can do to make sure that these things that are weighing on us don't take a real toll on us physically?
Yeah, there's a lot of things we can do. Some things we can do to address the stressors, and then some things we do to address our own reactions, our moods. And, in the trade, we distinguish between problem-focused coping and emotion-focused coping. In trying to manage the stressors, good task management skills, really making lists of things to do, prioritizing those lists, putting them in, into an order that can be done. Your typical to-do list can be very helpful. Trying to manage your expectations, allowing yourself not to recognize that not everything's going to be perfect about the holidays, that they can still be good.
That's a big one, because we have this Norman Rockwell picture of what the holidays should be like for us, right?
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I love Christmas Vacation so much, because
it pokes fun at that ideal, right?
Yeah, and by that standard, we'll all succeed, so, but really manage, those expectations. And, we don't want to sacrifice the good at the altar of the perfect, and we can...
I love that. Don't sacrifice the good at the altar of the perfect.
Putting on so much pressure. Judge yourself, look at your effort, not the outcome. I'm really trying to make this the best that I can for my family, for my friends, for myself. And, and that effort is what really matters.
You mentioned family. How important is it to reconcile with family? We all have, especially those of us with big families, we always have that person in our family that we haven't talked to in a while. There may be a bit of tension or bad feelings. Is it important, especially at this time of year, to make that phone call? Or
I think it can be very important. We are social beings. And all of that starts with our family. We learn how to relate to the world in our family. And, and problems come and go, stressors come and go, but family is forever. And so, I think it's really important to try to reconcile.
That can be hard, though, Gerry. It can be harder to reconcile with family, right, than it can with your friends.
Definitely. And we only have control over half of that. So what we can do is try to, maybe swallow our pride, reach out to someone by saying, I'm sorry, by accepting an apology if it's offered. We can try to mend, some bridges. Those kinds of things, saying you're sorry, accepting an apology, doesn't change the past, it changes the future. We all make mistakes. And so recognizing that this, the season of giving could be a good time to reach out. But you also have to recognize that that's all you can do. If someone is not receptive,
it's on them.
And then you have to, you have to then protect yourself.
Isn't there power in reaching out? Maybe power is not the right word because that's not typically a term associated with psychology, but isn't it a powerful feeling to say, you know what, I feel better at least that I reached out?
Yeah, I think it's a very empowering feeling, and we can, when we take the high road, we can really start to feel good about ourselves, and it helps us to do that. It also helps us to be more accepting of our own mistakes and shortcomings. Someone said to me the other day, a couple of weeks ago actually, but I love the saying, mistakes are like birthday candles. The more we have, the wiser we can be. And I like that statement. So recognizing we're going to make mistakes, people are going to make mistakes. If I treat people with more compassion, more understanding, I can kind of hope that people will do that the same for me.
You're listening to The Upbeat, a podcast about hope and perseverance from Kelly's Angels. And we often talk about loss because we want to lift up those who have endured a loss or suffered a loss or are struggling with loss. Now, when you're grieving the death of a loved one, how can you remember them? How can you incorporate their memory into the holidays?
Well, loss at the holidays is one of the things that can make the holidays such a painful season. When you have lost a loved one, words like sorrow and loneliness, sadness, longing, they take on a special meaning. Some holidays, the goal is just to get through them. If you're in that really acute phase of grief, the goal is to get through those holidays and, try to be around people who are comforting, try to do things that will be comforting. But always, I usually tell people those first holidays, have an escape plan, because I think this will work, but maybe, it won't. As we move through grief, I think it is really important to try to incorporate the memory of our loved ones into the holidays. A piece of the holidays will always be different. And that's forever, but there are ways of trying to incorporate things that were important traditions of that person so they live on in the holidays. And so, most families, who get to a good balance, they kind of create some new traditions and incorporate old traditions in with them, and that's really what grief's about, finding a way to keep moving through life and stay connected to the love.
I may have told you this story before. When Kelly passed away and we had a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, Connor was 7, McKenna was 5, I went to a grief support group It was grief support at the holidays. And I was young. Kelly was only 37 when she passed away. And I may have been the youngest person there, the youngest surviving spouse there, a room full of people. And one after the next, people shared. And they said, well, that first holiday, Kelly passed away in October, that first Christmas, I said, I'm not doing anything. I don't feel like it. I'm not feeling up to it, so I'm not putting up a tree. I'm not doing any of the traditions that we typically do. And I sat there and thought, well, okay, I understand where you are. But being a father of a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old,
that's not an option.
No, it was not an option. So you have to forge ahead. It also occurs to me that faith is at the center of the holidays for many families. It's a high, holy day. Christmas in particular I'm talking about, but there are Jewish holidays as well. For families who may be spiritual, is there a particular way that they can cope, Gerry?
I think people who have a spiritual faith, it's a great resource. It's a great resource for comfort. It's a great resource for meaning. When a death occurs, it is an existential crisis. It causes us to question what life's about, and what is beyond our life. And so a person's faith at that time can be a really good resource for finding comfort, finding some meaning in some of the difficult things that happen. Most people are familiar with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's 5 stages of grief. One of the men who worked with her has proposed a 6th stage, and it's called making meaning. And it recognizes that while a part of you may have died when that person is lost, that person can live on in you. And when you find a way to make meaning and to stay connected, that helps the grieving process. I think there's so much.
I love that. That's an example. Kelly's Angels is an example of that.
Perfect example of that.
We help children and families in Kelly Mulholland's memory.
Correct.
So we've found meaning, even though she's not here to experience it with us.
And that, I'm sure, at the holidays, all the time, but especially at the holidays in a season of giving, that empowers, that empowers you. I lost my father a few years ago, and my father was kind of my role model in terms of giving to others. And so one of the things I do now at the holidays is try to find some way of doing some charitable giving, because it just helps me to stay connected to him, and he lives on through me, and then hopefully through, and my kids. And
they've learned that. They're learning it from you, the importance of giving.
And Mark, also for people who don't have, some people struggle with faith, and it is not something that they have, and they can still hold on to that sense of finding meaning. Connecting to something bigger than themselves. And because grief is bigger than us at times, it's crushing.
It's heavy, it's crushing, and it comes in waves, as you taught me many years ago. We're going to take a quick break to thank our underwriters. When we come back, though, we want to talk about resolutions. Do you have some? Do you make some? And what your thoughts are?
Sounds good.
Support for the Upbeat comes from the Boebert Family Fund, which supports charitable organizations that efficiently use the resources they have to make a disproportionate impact on the world around them. The Cartier Real Estate Group, a trusted boutique brokerage in Saratoga Springs, New York, that helps clients navigate the complicated and often unpredictable process of buying and selling homes. From expert guidance throughout your transaction to ongoing advice on improving market value, the Cartier Real Estate Group works to help clients at every price point realize their residential and commercial real estate goals. Learn more at thecartiergroup.com. And Noble Ace Hardware in South Glens Falls, New York, which offers competitive pricing and high-quality products for just about anything you need. For more than 30 years, the team at Noble Ace has delivered on its promise to be the most helpful hardware store in town by providing excellent customer service that exceeds expectations and reflects family values during each and every visit.
Welcome back. I'm Mark Mulholland, and you're listening to The Upbeat, a podcast about perseverance and hope from Kelly's Angels. My guest today is psychologist Dr. Gerry Florio, who is the clinical psychologist at the C.R. Wood Cancer Center at Glens Falls Hospital and a friend of mine and a friend of Kelly's Angels. We talked about coping a little bit. Let's talk a little bit more about how people can cope, especially at this time of year.
You know, we talked about some of those problem-focused strategies, how trying to manage the stressors, whether they be demands or whether they be mental stress we put on. It's also important to take good care of yourself during the holidays, to recognize that physical exhaustion it adds to stress. So we need to get some rest. Try to sleep well, try to eat well, take care of our health, take care of our mental health.
I have to ask, because this occurs to me, we get that advice often. How do we prevent that advice from becoming stressful? Because we know we need to eat well, we know we need to sleep well. How do you prevent that from becoming more stressful?
Well, that's part of the, maintaining a healthy attitude, is to recognize that if I do more than if I'm trying more this year, if I have a little more success than last year, then you know what, I'm doing well. I usually try to encourage people to. We're in constant conversation with ourselves. We talk to ourselves more than we talk to anyone else, and we usually don't pay attention to that conversation. And it's in that conversation that we can make when we don't hit the mark on sleeping well, eating well, taking care of ourselves, where we can beat ourselves up.
Yeah.
And I really encourage people to try to take notice of that and talk to yourself as if you talk to a friend. If a friend said to you, I'm trying to eat well, and yesterday I just did terribly.
Don't beat yourself up.
Boy, you are a giant loser.
No, you'd say don't beat yourself up, right?
Of course. Tomorrow's another day,
Treat yourself as well as you would treat your friends.
Other people. Because so pay attention to that. Pay attention to that conversation that you have with yourself. So doing things like, keeping your physical health up, keeping your mental health, up, making some time for things that will ground you, things that relax you, things that, and it doesn't have to be a lot of time. Even during the holidays, just sitting down and having a cup of tea. Just listening to some holiday music, just for 5 or 10 minutes. You're making a powerful statement that, there's a lot to do, but I matter. I have to take care of, I have to take care of myself. And then, again, that's where monitoring your expectations. Things do not have to be perfect. That the important things in life are the people around me, and maybe I'll let some of the to-do list go and be around some people.
Don't sacrifice good at the altar of perfect. Yeah. Okay, resolutions. Losing weight, exercising more, eating healthier, sleeping more. They're among the most common. Unfortunately, I think research shows that only a small percentage of those who make resolutions report being successful with those resolutions. Instead, most of us abandon them relatively quickly. Why is that, and is there a way to avoid that?
Well, I think the reason why I think people are sincere in wanting to make positive changes, and I think that people put a lot of effort into it. I think sometimes what could happen is they're not setting themselves up for success, and one of the ways we can set ourselves up for success is to establish SMART goals. When we're talking about a SMART goal, we're talking about something that's specific. I want to be healthier. Well, that's a hard thing to do. I want to go to my annual physical. I want to exercise
Truly
3 days.
Achievable goals.
Yes, and they have to be specific. So we know how, what we need to do. They have to be measurable. So I want to lose weight. I want to lose 4 pounds. I can see if I'm measuring, I want to, work out 2 times a week. I want to walk 4 times a week. I want to, walk for a mile. I want to work out for 20 minutes. The more measurable it is, the better it is. Attainable. Rome wasn't built in a day, and we have to walk before we can run. So, for me to say, well, I want to run a marathon this year,
You could do it, though.
Well, I'm almost 60, so I don't think I can do that anymore. But they have to be attainable. They have to be, something we feel like we have the tools to do. The R in SMART is they have to be relevant, and real and important to us. If it is, the more valued it is, the more we're going to do it. And then timely. I want to do it for this long.
Do you make resolutions?
I do. You
mind sharing one? Or?
I don't at all. Last year, through COVID and all of the disconnection, I made a resolution that I was going to reconnect with 2 friends that I had lost contact with. It was one of the highlights of my year. So I
love that.
I plan to do that again. I'm going to pick another person.
Achievable, measurable, specific.
Yep. I'm gonna identify the people. I am either gonna.
And we all have them. Everyone in our life.
We all do.
Everyone in our lives have those people who we've lost contact with, and we often say, I'd love to contact that person, him or her again, and wonder what they're up to. Social media has changed a little bit of that, but the people we really want to have contact with might not be the people who are on Facebook or on social media.
Yeah, I'm not a Facebooker, and so I had to actually pick up the phone and call people. I realized over the COVID that I had allowed, and I have to take responsibility. I had allowed being busy to
be negatively.
Yep. It's a great excuse. I know people are familiar with Brene Brown, but she's a very wise, woman. She's a social worker, does a lot on overcoming shame, and she says that workaholics, it's another way of avoiding things that we may find difficult to do. She said, alcoholics meet in church basements. If they had meeting for workaholics, they'd be in stadiums. So it's because it's a socially acceptable. I felt good. I'm busy, but I realized that my life is not richer without other people.
Love it. Let's talk again about stress. It doesn't necessarily have to be at the holidays. That's when people are listening to this podcast. But general signs that a little anxiety is something more than that. What should we be looking out for, and how do we know when to seek professional help?
That's a great question. So let's talk about adults, first. We can talk about adults and kids signs in the different ones. So one of the things that we look for in adults is a change in performance. So now you are starting to have difficulty. You can't keep up with the things that usually you have been doing. When you start to lose, it starts to impact your sleep and your, your appetite. It starts to, you have difficulty controlling your mood. You're starting to have outbursts that you might not be aware of. Physical pain can be a sign. You always have to look for the medical, physical, reasons, but stress can also cause pain that can cause us to realize we need to get some help. Panic attacks,
what is it? What's a panic attack?
A panic attack is a sudden, intense flare of the stress response. So the stress response, heart rate quickens, breathing becomes shallow and rapid, muscles tighten. So people all of a sudden start to feel pain. They have common places in their chest. They start to breathe quickly. They feel some threat, but then the reaction increases the threat, which increases the reaction, which increases the threat. So you're off to the. They are very frightening. They are sometimes triggered by specific stimuli, or they can sometimes happen when someone starts to relax. They kind of let their guard down, and they are very distressing.
Does someone who experiences them or has experienced one need to seek professional help for that kind of?
They will usually end up going to an emergency room. because they think that you feel like you're dying, and they are very upsetting, but they can be treated very quickly. For depression, some of the signs for depression that you want to watch out in adults is that you start to disengage. One of the things, you can be sad and not depressed. People ask me a lot, is being happy the opposite of depression? And I say, not really. I mean, the opposite of depression to me is engagement. When a depression starts to, when it starts to grow and get problematic, people start to withdraw from activities, from other people. Everything starts to feel like a chore. They have trouble, they either sleep all the time or they don't want to sleep.
So if someone in our life is withdrawing a little bit,
reach out. It could be a sign of depression. The other sign, reliable sign of depression is a change in thinking. People get more negative in their thinking. They get more narrow and negative about themselves, others, and the way the world works. And depression, again, very treatable, but can be a potent force for destroying quality of life.
It occurs to me we're hearing more about anxiety than ever before. People say, I have anxiety, or I'm being treated for anxiety. Is that good? Is it good that we're able to talk about it more? Or conversely, are we talking about it maybe not too much, but is it used too often? Or is it identified maybe too often?
Yeah, I think both of those things are true. I think it is good that we're talking about our anxieties more, but we have to recognize the difference between anxiety, which is a normal feeling state. Everybody has anxiety, but one of the things important, again, in that self-conversation, I'm anxious. Yeah, I'm anxious, but I can still do this. Anxiety is actually a potent motivator of behavior. If I'm anxious about a test, I'm going to get myself into the library and study, and I may do better. There's the Yerkes-Dodson curve: stress and performance, anxiety and performance. It's an upward reaction to a point, and then it goes down. Then the more anxiety, it goes off. So the mood state, it is a good thing for us to talk about it. An anxiety disorder is anxiety to the point that it starts to have an impact on functioning, and that's the difference. One's very normal and natural and part of life. People say I'm anxious. Sometimes people apologize for crying. Saying, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm anxious." That means you're paying attention.
I remember from my freshman year in college, a psychology class where the professor explained anxiety as a lifesaver. If you're in the woods and you see a bear, it's thank anxiety for giving you the ability to get out of there, right? I mean,
and that part of our brain, the midbrain, the limbic part of our brain, has evolved to do that, and it's great at doing that. What it's not great at doing is differentiating between social embarrassment and a saber-toothed tiger.
Right. Because lots of people are anxious, have anxiety over social interactions.
And they have that same, and when that system fires, it's the same reaction. We need our frontal brain to help us distinguish between those two.
Anything you'd like to add about stress at the holidays, Gerry, and how we can maybe navigate through it better?
Well, one of the things I think that is really important to help with stress is and this is with any stress, but we don't have to do this all by ourselves. Our social support, so encouragement, comfort, someone who makes you laugh, helps you just keep going through life. People who are willing to help us, with just getting things done. The Bible says it's better to give than to receive. I think it's easier to give than to receive for a lot of people too. It's hard to ask for help. But at the holidays, when things get tough, I think it's important to be able to ask for help, to be able to lean on others. That we don't have to do this all by we don't have to do this all by ourselves. We're more powerful when we are linked together.
Dr. Gerry Florio, thank you for spending some time with us and sharing your expertise. It's always a pleasure to have you.
It's always my pleasure to be here, Mark. Thank you.
And thank you to everyone who is listening. Whether you celebrate Hanukkah, Christmas, Kwanzaa, and any other holiday tradition, we wish you all the peace, joy, love, and hope of the season. And may the new year be filled with good health, a lot of laughter, and smiles. We'll be back in the new year with new episodes of The Upbeat, including a candid conversation about finding love after loss, and we'll explore the healing power of music. Happy holidays, everyone. I'm Mark Mulholland. Until next time, stay on The Upbeat.
If you enjoy The Upbeat, please subscribe and leave us a review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you have topics you'd like us to cover on The Upbeat, please send your ideas to theupbeatpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. On behalf of the volunteer board of Kelly's Angels and the families we help who are facing life-threatening conditions, thank you for listening to The Upbeat.
Nice job, McKenna Rose.
Thanks, Dad. You too.